This week, Marinus Pharmaceuticals gave its 2020 Q1 business update, citing a number of clinical plans and key milestones ahead. Here to share his perspective on the announcement is Dr. Joe Hulihan. He's the Chief Medical Officer for Marinus Pharmaceuticals. Dr. Hulihan, thank you so much for being here.
Sure, my pleasure.
Of course, glad to have you. Now, I understand your end of phase 2 meeting with the FDA went well, and you're preparing to initiate a phase 3 trial in status epilepticus. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. Well, we had a very productive meeting with the FDA. It was collegial. I think we agreed on the major outlines of a study design for status epilepticus. The study is going to be done in the hospital. Status epilepticus is the second most common neurologic emergency after stroke. It's called status epilepticus, and it can occur in people who have a history of epilepsy, but actually it usually occurs in people with no history of epilepsy. And if it's associated with epilepsy, it's usually the first symptom of epilepsy. And it consists of prolonged or continuous seizures that are very difficult to treat. So we're going to study ganaxolone in patients with status epilepticus who failed 2 or 3 other medications. So this is a very hard population to treat. There's very little data in this patient population. But based on some preliminary data we had in an open label phase 2 study in 17 patients, we were very optimistic about phase 3. And that study helped us design the phase 3 study in terms of what kinds of patients to enroll, what dose of the medication to use, and several other aspects of the study. So that really helped us get a good start on designing a large double-blind placebo-controlled study.
That's great, but we know it's not the only good news Marinus reported. The Marigold study for children and young adults with CDKL5 deficiency disorder has completed enrollment, and you'll have exciting data to share there coming Q3. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, well, this study, CDD or CDKL5 deficiency disorder, we enrolled 101 children and young adults in this study with the disorder. The study enrolled on time. We're fully enrolled. Out of the 101 patients, 70 have completed the double-blind phase of the trial, and so we'll be having data on that this fall. One of the challenges in completing this trial, and a lot of companies have faced this, is the problems with COVID-19. Fortunately for this study, we didn't get off track at all in terms of getting data, getting patient information. We used remote visits. Patients had their labs done locally instead of coming to the study center to have them done. And we used electronic seizure diaries so that we can actually access the information from the study remotely. And the COVID-19 pandemic hasn't slowed us down at all, and we'll complete on time this September.
Lastly, it looks like your new TSC trial could help identify biomarkers for ganaxolone. Can you share a few details about the TSC trial and the progress Marinus is making there?
Sure. So you mentioned a biomarker. That biomarker is allopregnanolone sulfate. We found with some preliminary data that patients with decreased levels of allopregnanolone sulfate, or ALLO-S, may have a better response to ganaxolone. And we've looked at that across several populations of patients, looking to see what patients had decreased levels of ALLO-S. One of the interesting things about tuberous sclerosis is that patients endogenously have an imbalance in allopregnanolone. And so that may be part of the reason that they have seizures. Patients with TSC or tuberous sclerosis complex can have seizures that are frequent. They can be difficult to treat, refractory to treatment. And so there's a real unmet need in this population. We're kicking off a phase 2 open label study very shortly, and that'll give us some preliminary data, and we're going to look at ALLO-S in that study, and hopefully that'll give us some more information about a biomarker approach in epilepsy. So this would bring a personalized medicine approach to epilepsy, and we're very excited to start that study and see the results.
Excellent. Dr. Hulihan, thank you so much for being here. We'll leave it there.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Of course, and for more information, you can visit marinuspharma.com.